The NBA free agency has just kicked off, and one of the teams making the biggest splashes would have to be the Houston Rockets. Now, the Houston Rockets went to the offseason with some of the most cap space in the NBA, partially because they have an absolute ton of young talent who's being paid hella cheap, and also because they're like the worst team in the NBA. So, who are they paying really? Nobody, which is why they have so much cap space. They're super young and super trash. Now, of course, this young talent will eventually develop into something, but for right now, they're just a bunch of teenagers hooping against grown men. So the Houston Rockets head into free agency with the mindset of getting some veteran presence to really solidify this team and possibly, make them playoff contenders. Now, when I say playoff contenders, I really mean play-in contenders, like a 7 through 10 seed is probably where they will be at heading into this season at their peak, and is probably their goal to get out of the lottery because they've been there for the last 4 or 5 years. Now, if you want to know more about Houston's past, just check out this video right here where I talked about how they won the draft, because I believe they absolutely killed the draft, especially with the Cam Whitmore pickup with the 20th overall pick. I mean, what an absolute steal. Cam Whitmore is a dog, and the fact that they were able to get him that late because of rumors about his work ethic or whatever, or injury issues, absolutely crazy. I personally wanted my Los Angeles Lakers to pick up Cam Whitmore. Didn't happen. But let's get into the free agent signings. That's what we're here for. Now, the biggest signing that the Houston Rockets made has to be, hands down, Freddie VanVleet from the Toronto Raptors. The biggest, let's be real, he was the biggest free agent heading into the offseason, because, there are guys like James Harden and Kyrie Irving, but those guys probably weren't going to be, they were going to opt in, or they were going to re-sign. And, Kyrie Irving re-signed with the Mavericks, and James Harden opted in, and he's probably going to be traded. Who knows? New York, Clippers, I'll make a video once that happens. But for now, let's be real, Freddie VanVleet was the biggest free agent, and the Rockets had the most amount of money. So those two were linked with each other from day one. And so the Rockets signing him wasn't surprising. But how much was the question? No one really knew what Freddie was going to get, except that it was probably going to be huge. Now, I want to say the numbers were around 3 years, 130, maybe 128 to be exact. 3 years, $128 million. That's a huge contract. If you don't know anything about the NBA, that's massive. He's getting paid around $42 million a year. Yes, Fred VanVleet, of all players, is getting paid $42 million a year to play basketball, and deservedly so. Bro is a hooper. I mean, he won a championship with the Toronto Raptors. As much as you want to think it, Kawhi Leonard did not win that championship alone. I mean, sure, the injuries from some of the Warriors' key players did help the Raptors win that championship that season, but also the Toronto Raptors had a really strong core group of guys, and Fred VanVleet was a part of that. So the fact that he's able to get this bag is huge. And you might think that's a pretty nasty contract, but the Rockets needed to spend their money. They needed to put it somewhere. Plus, there is a team option heading into year 3. So, it's pretty much looking like 4 years, 2 years, 80-ish million is the real contract. Because let's be real, as long as their talent develops, the Houston Rockets are not picking up that third year. Absolutely not. Because by then, some of their star players are probably going to want their deals. I'm talking Jalen Green, if he blossoms into the star that I think he could be. Jalen Green is probably going to be looking at a deal at that point. Plus, they got hella young players coming up. Alperen Sengun, Jabari Smith Jr., Amen Thompson just got drafted. Cam Whitmore, like I mentioned. This team is stacked and loaded. They're like a worse Thunder, I would say, because the Thunder also are sitting at like the same situation, except their future's looking brighter. Shea is hands down better than Jalen Green, but hopefully Jalen Green gets to the point where I think he can get to. And speaking of hooping, what's another big free agent that they got? Well, let me tell you, Dillon freaking Brooks. Yes, the guy that we all joked about heading to China after LeBron basically ended his career. And the Memphis Grizzlies came out and said he will no longer be a part of this team heading forward. We want nothing to do with him, is basically what they implied. Dillon Brooks, he was expected to get a deal. He came out and said he's hoping for somewhere around 12 mil a year. Yeah, no. That's not what happened. The Houston Rockets, they had a bunch of money, and they needed to put it somewhere. Why not put it in Dillon Brooks? Absolutely crazy. This man got a huge purse. I want to say, let me see, looking at his contract, it's 4 years, $80 million. Longer than Freddie VanVleet. He's looking at about 20 mil a year. Now, something that most people might not know about this Dillon Brooks contract is while it might be massive, it is front-loaded. So he is going to get most of his money up front in the first few seasons, and then it's going to decrease over time. So who knows how that'll pan out, but Dillon Brooks is a solid pickup for any team, and I think he is, a good veteran presence to add. He's going to help these young guys take their career more serious. I think Dillon Brooks and Fred VanVleet are good veteran presences to make, Jalen Green, Alperen Sengun, Cam Whitmore, whip them into shape, get these guys ready for the 2024 season for a potential playoff run. Now, here's the thing. Even though the Rockets had money to spend, should they have thrown it all into players, basically? Yes, they did sign Jock Landale for 4 years, $32 million, and Jeff Green for 1 year, $6 million. Pretty solid pickups. Those are more reasonable contracts. But should the Rockets have gone out and thrown all their money into 2 players? I've seen deals like this before. I'm talking Timothy Mozgov, Luol Deng. They got nasty contracts from the LA Lakers a few years ago, and those contracts came to bite the Lakers in the butt for years to come because those guys underperformed, and the only reason they got deals that big is because the free agency class was pretty weak and they had a lot of money and needed something to do with it. Personally, I wish the Lakers would have invested it in more not younger players, but just more players. Spread the money out a bit. They should have done that because Luol Deng, he was getting paid to not play. I'm pretty sure he got paid, for 3 or 4 more years, and he wasn't even on the team at that point, but they just said, they had to cut his contract down the road. I've seen these kind of deals being made before. Now, of course, they did front load and I want to say team option some of these deals, like I mentioned earlier, but this could be a huge risk for the Rockets. Hell, if their young players aren't able to develop, we could come back looking at this free agency 1-2 years from now and talking about how bad the Rockets messed up. So let's hope for the Rockets' sake, because they haven't been good in a minute. They really haven't been good since the Hakeem era, if we're keeping it a buck. Because the James Harden era was nice, but what did they really accomplish there? Nothing but choke with Chris Paul. So I've seen these kind of deals be made before. I've seen mistakes. Let's hope that this goes better for the Rockets than it did with the Lakers a few years ago. Catch y'all later, though. Much love. Deuces.